So today it is fucking cold and we're not walking. It's like 21 degrees. Last thing I saw earlier said there was like a thing that said when it was 12 degrees there was a real feel of -2 and it's fucking cold. So yeah. We're skipping the walk today. They're not pleased with it, but that's what we're doing. Zeva doesn't care because she's got her little blanket and the car's warming up now. We had some drama at home, and it's like, I need to leave. So obviously, come back to the cemetery and do another video, right? So today, well, I parked way in the back again because my mom took my grandma to the bank, and just in case they happened to end up over here, because I had thought seriously about parking up at the front momentarily, but it's like, yeah, that's not gonna happen, just in case. So there's been drama. So yesterday I dropped the kid off at school and my brother was gonna pick her up as long as the weather cooperated and it didn't snow before it was time for him to get the kid and then go get his wife. So that was the game plan. That has been the game plan, and since our parents have been otherwise preoccupied with all the hospital runs and all that crap, it's become a thing where it's been between us. So it was between us. We talked about it and figured out what the week was going to look like, and it was all fine and well. And then when the kid got there yesterday morning, my dogs all went nuts because, well, they knew they were there, so had to alert the masses and let everybody know they'd gotten there. And so they did. And then my mom obviously was woken up in that process. So she came out and she was in her pajamas and hadn't been talked to, so she didn't get ready to go and all that fun stuff. It was fine. Dropped the kid off. I went back home, and then I think yesterday I got the dogs, and then we came over here and walked. Did a video yesterday afternoon when my brother was going to pick her up. He'd sent me a message because it hadn't even started snowing at that point. He was like, so weather's fine, I'm just gonna go get her. It's like, great. I was all excited to take a nap because I was freaking tired after funeral shit this week and all that exciting stuff. So that was my plan. And I went and I tried to lay down. Well, no, okay, before I got to that point, I went into the kitchen, I think, to refill my water. And my dad was in there, my mom wasn't around. It's like, where'd mom go? And, I hadn't really thought much about it. I mean, she's been spending a lot of time with my grandma still. But he said, well, she went to pick up Gracie. It's like, why? That wasn't on us today. It's like her dad was picking her up because it's early drop-off or early pickup day, and he can do that, so he was going to do that. It's like, oh, well, mom asked me about it, and I said I didn't know anything about it, so she went or said she was going to pick up Gracie. It's like, okay. So I sent my brother a message, and of course he's sitting in car line, and I said, apparently your mother is in the line. And he's like, what? It's like, yeah. It's like, I knew nothing about it. I was all set to take a nap. And thought I should give you the heads up that apparently mom's in car line. And he's like, okay. I was like, look, nobody said anything to me about it or I would have mentioned it. I figured since they hadn't been asked about it, they wouldn't just make the assumptions. no, I know better than that. And then there we were. So they assumed all was a normal day, and normal day compared, or back when, Mom wasn't living at the hospital with my grandfather and all that bullshit. It's like, I just don't even know. So my brother was all pissed off, and he sent my mom a text. He's like, "Are you in Carline?" And she said, "Yes." And he said, "Why? I was going to pick her up." And it's like, it was a big thing. And then it was like, he said, "Okay, fine. You stay in Carline. I'll go ahead and go pick up Jen." It's like, all right. So she went to pick up Jen, sent me a message about keeping an eye on the kid, just since the whole energy dynamic has been all wacky, even more than normal lately. And it's like, all I wanted to do was take a fucking nap. And there we were. Suddenly, that's not an option either. I tried laying down for a few minutes because I had the moment where I forgot that it was early pickup day. And it's like, well, she won't be back until like 3:45 anyway. And it's like, oh yeah. But then the dogs were barking at the FedEx guy that showed up with packages, and it's like, it just became a thing, and my nap did not happen, and I was very disappointed. I did, however, go to bed early, so that was a little bit of a positive way to end, I guess. Oh man. It's just, anyway, my brother was texting me back and forth for a while, and of course we've both been doing our healing process, and it's been a hot mess as we've been navigating through the stuff with our parents and why we are the way we are, and trying to work through those things, right? And yeah. So he started writing up a thing that he was going to send to my mom. And yeah. So that was a whole thing. And I watched the video from yesterday, and then it was like, I'm fucking tired. Didn't get my nap in. And it was like, at 6 o'clock, I was wanting to go to bed, but it's like, no, it's too early to go to bed. It just ate. So, didn't do that. So, I was, I finished watching the video, finished I think I messed with my Oracle card some last night, too. And then I was like, okay, everything I wanted to do is now done, so I want to go to bed. So, my mom had gotten up after... Well, she made dinner and then left and didn't eat anything. Didn't say anything to anybody before she left either, just left. It was like, okay. And mind you, at that point in time, nobody had said anything to her about that whole thing, minus the little bit with my brother and her texting when he first found out she was in Carline. So, she just got up and left and went over there. And it was fine. So I went and finished what I was doing, and then after all that, she still wasn't back when I decided to go to bed. And then my brother sent me a message. He sent it to me and his wife. And so it's just a conversation with the three of us. And he's like, tell me what you think. Tell me if anything needs tweaked. And, it was just this tangent about... We've had it covered between the two of us because they were preoccupied with the other stuff. So we were just rolling with this week as we'd already discussed. And that was, really, the whole week. Like, they did the drop off and pick up on Monday because my sister-in-law was working remotely. And... because the visitation was in the afternoon. So they went and picked up the kid, and then they brought her over to that thing. And then Tuesday, okay, this is the only thing that really shifted from what was what's supposed to happen per our conversation about it. There ended up being a 2-hour fog delay for the school system. And so they didn't do part of the field trip, but they still did the other part, and the choir still did their thing. So they still did not go to the funeral, which was still a sore spot for my mom and my grandma. And, whatever. It was mostly as we'd already talked about it. And then, yesterday, the debacle with the car line in the afternoon. And honestly, I figured she would be okay wanting to sleep in a little bit, since everything's been as chaotic as it has been with my grandfather and all that crap. But probably should have said something, I guess, in hindsight. But whatever, we're kind of obviously beyond that point. So my brother sent his message to the family chat, which was my parents and my brother and sister-in-law and me. And he wasn't a jerk about anything. He said, we've had this worked out, and we were just going to roll with the way we worked it out, since, things have been the way they are, with the funeral and all that crap. And we'd already talked about stuff. I got it set up. But then, of course, if he would have made it up to the teachers and been trying to get a kid that just left, that would have been a problem, So, yeah. So he's like, just talk to one of us, right? He said, if you want to pick her up or drop her off, that's fine. Just make sure to talk to somebody about it first, and not just assume and do like it was previously done, because there's been a lot going on in the past few months, and it has changed, at least a little bit. So, yeah. But this morning, I didn't know what she was doing, because the lights were all off when I was getting ready. And then, I told my brother, it's like, I'm pretty sure she'll show up because the kid's here and she knows the kid's here, and she'll probably want to go today. But at the same time, I'm not seeing movement or hearing movement, and there's no other lights on, so I don't know what's going on with that. And so, sure enough, after my brother and sister-in-law leave to go downtown, like 5 or 10 minutes later, my mom comes in, and she's dressed and has her shoes, or is carrying her shoes. I'm thinking, was obviously planning on going, which was fine. I figured that would probably come up either today or tomorrow, but yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so my mom said she wanted to run back to the UPS store again. Now, after last week's drama, I'm not in a hurry to go back there. But she has more. Taz is snoring. She has more stuff to take back. She got a couple pairs of dress pants for my grandma on Amazon, and then my grandma refused to try them on until like the next day, when she didn't have time to take them back that way. So yeah. So we went this morning, except for she literally did not mess with anything on the Amazon return stuff until we pulled into the UPS parking lot. She's like, hold on a minute. And then she starts messing with it and trying to figure out the stuff. Well, then come to find out that since it's so close to the holidays, they're back to, you need to have this item in a box with a shipping label. And, we're sitting in the car and have our phones, but we do not have, a printer or anything, or a box to fit the things that we're going to go back. So we sit there for like 10 minutes while she's going back and forth trying to mess with it. And it's like, well, it's probably just because of the holidays again, because I feel like they did something similar last year. But it was just a whole ordeal. But then I was like, well, since we're here, it's like the place that is supposed, or could, that is through the phone insurance to fix my phone screen, since I cracked it all to hell. It was just practically just across the street. It's down a little ways, but not too far. And so we went over there. Well, found out that they didn't open until 10. It was like right at 9 o'clock at that point. So it's like, well, we need some groceries. So we went to Aldi's. Like, I threw out all the milk this morning because it was all expired, and like got a gallon of milk out of the fridge in the garage to throw away because it was from November 15th, because with all the hospital drama, like, everything was getting overlooked. And I drink chocolate milk on occasion, but that's not even an everyday thing. And I didn't for a long time, so that was a recent re-add. But even that, like, the chocolate milk we had expired last week, so it's like, that can go. Don't need to give that to the kid. And then she was like, well, you can just get me some white milk and put the chocolate syrup in it. It's like, she said, Grandma does that sometimes. Well, I went to look out in the garage, and it's like, nope, we're not doing that one either. So, yeah, so that was fun. And there was a partial one in the house that was, I think, from like Thanksgiving that was expired. It's like, yeah, clearly we need to go to the store. So while we were waiting on the phone fix place to open, we went back to the other end of the parking lot and did some grocery shopping and got a few things. And then when we finished up, it was like 5 till 10. So we went over there to the other place again. And, I talked to him, and the guy said for a Samsung, he said that usually is a 2 to 3 hour fix. It's like, well, I was like, okay, so I'm going to hang on to it right now, because I was kind of thinking I might want to do a video. In hindsight, since it's so freaking cold today, I wish I would have just left my phone right then, since I was the second one in line, and then I could just go back this afternoon and get it, and then I would have my phone all taken care of. And since it was cold, it wouldn't be a problem to not do this, but there was chaos at home, so here I am to do a video. So, oh yes, so apparently my brother was feeling kindly toward my father, and my dad put a thumbs up thing on the group text message that my brother sent last night. And so my brother sent him a message and was like, FYI, that didn't pertain to you or whatever. And, it was just, since there was the confusion about pickup, he just felt like it needed to be addressed, kind of a thing. So this afternoon, my dad starts a conversation with just me and my brother. And it's called Kids. So that was how he named it. And he goes into this little tangent. Now, mind you, I was sitting in my office, minding my own business, kind of messing with my Oracle cards and watching music videos on my phone. And then I started seeing these messages pop up. It's like, oh shit, what now? And it's, you kids need to lay off your mom and blah blah blah. And there were a couple messages, and one was basically, we're being mean to her, and the other was basically, it was his fault that the afternoon stuff went the way it did, blah blah blah. And it's like So I sent a message back and I said, then it sounds like maybe if you aren't aware that there are already plans in place, maybe you should ask, or not just assume things are as they were previously without talking to somebody first. Since that was the whole thing, and I don't even remember. It was just a whole bunch of aggravation. And here's this dude. Hi. Thanks. We don't need to talk about it. It's okay. I know you didn't come here to just sit in the car. Well, that's what we're gonna do. So yeah, then like my dad came back with something, and he said, he said, I asked her if she was picking Gracie up, and she said no, because yesterday she got yelled at. And I was like, the only reason anything was said was because she did it without asking if there was a plan for us to pick her up or for my brother to pick her up. That was the reason it was a problem. And so he comes back with saying it was his fault and blah blah blah, and it's like, well, it sounds like you need to butt out if you don't know what's going on. And then he comes back with today, he's not going to be picking her up today either, and he won't be picking her up from now on unless he has asked directly. And I said, good, mind your own business unless asked directly. How about that? So then, then he shifted into the grown child aspect and sending stupid emojis and, like the angry face with the steam coming out the nostrils or whatever. It's just like, dude, shut up. So I sent my brother a message before I came over here, and I was like, too bad that didn't happen before your appointment today. Because he's talking to the therapist today, and yeah, he was all stressed out about the stuff with my mom. And then my dad starts his bullshit, and was like, I was just like, well, sorry that didn't come up before your appointment. I was like, but I'm going to the cemetery to do a video and vent for a little bit, so if you happen to want to chat, don't call me yet. I'll call you back when I'm done, or whatever. Or you can call me, but I might not answer the phone because I might be busy. So yeah, I've seen a couple messages pop up from him, both in the conversation just to me and the conversation to me and my dad, and it's like, oh, yep. And the last one I saw, if you need to take Gracie back to our house, you can. It's like, well, we'll just see, because it's like 2:20, and we're hanging out over here at the cemetery doing a video, and I don't know how long I'm going to go on this, but I'm going to take the dogs back home and drop them off before I go sit in the car line. But yeah, I'm just so tired of drama, and everything feels like it comes with lots of drama anymore. It's like, why is that necessary? I don't like drama. I really don't. My brother started sending me the stuff last night with what he was going to say to our mom. It's like, I don't want to be part of this. Just on the receiving end of how she's going to act when the message is sent. And, yep, that was why. But, I don't know. Then I was sitting, I watched this video that it was talking about the twin flame runner, and signs you can tell the twin flame runner is awakening or whatever. And I watched the video, and of course it felt relevant because I've talked on here before about I had a dream not too long ago where so it was like I was in this room that had a stage, and everything was dark except for the stage was lit up, but nobody was on the stage. And it seemed like I was probably there with my mom, but then I don't know, but waitress comes over and is talking to us, and she starts in talking about how she officiated a wedding over the weekend, and she said that something about the bride was authentic and raw, and she had to remember who the name was, and the name she said was my twin flame, right? So, and in the dream, I just like shifted into the state of panic, because it's like wedding had nothing to do with me, and it was just like this very stressful moment in the dream. So it's like I felt myself like shift into this state of panic, and I felt myself jump back into my body to try to wake myself up, which was kind of a weird experience because I've never felt that like that before, but it was like just jumped right back into my body to wake up. And then I was all anxious when I woke up, and it's like, what the hell is this all about, kind of a thing. So as I was jumping back into my body, I hear him say, "It's you, my love." And it's like I paused, and it's like I know it's supposed to be, and then continued on the waking up bit anyway. And so when I was trying to figure out everything, hey, quit licking. It made me realize it's like, so basically, okay, keeping in mind that I've never met this guy in person. We've encountered each other on social media a couple times and have been in the same room once that I know of. And so like just everything I was hearing there for a while, when I was thinking about it, I was thinking that I would probably be the one in like the chaser position, right? And then that dream made me realize it's like, nope, that's not the case at all. It's like, so I've always been the runner, but obviously, okay, first, my twin flame scenario is not like everybody else's that I've heard of at this point, because most people, they meet in person and then like they actually have some kind of legit connection in the physical realm, and then go their separate ways for a time to do the healing work and all that stuff. So for me, we've never met in person. We've encountered each other on social media, and the first time, he had like 2020, I got this really strong sense that I was supposed to get on Instagram. It's like, I don't know why, I don't know what this is, I don't know what to do with it. Before that, it hadn't been too far before that I had said I didn't think I would ever add any more beyond Facebook, just because this is the one that I've been used to for so long, and most of the people that I care keeping up with are kind of already there. I don't know any of the other modes of social media or whatever. It's like I don't even know how they work, what's the point of them, any of that stuff. But then I started feeling like I was supposed to get on Instagram, so I did. And well, since it seemed like the thing you're supposed to do is just follow a bunch of random people, right? I started with a couple bands, one of which was the one that I heard of him first through, which had only come from another one that I had wanted to see on tour, and found out they were supposed to be touring together over the pandemic. Then that didn't happen because of the pandemic. So it got canceled, and I was all pissed, but I started following this band anyway, and like, all the members of the bands and stuff. It's like, okay, so this seems to be the thing you do here. Just follow celebrities and whatnot, right? And so I did that, and one day I saw that he had a live stream going, and it's like, what does that mean? What is a live stream? What happens in this thing, right? And so I clicked on it just out of curiosity, and at first I was like just really distracted with like, the room he was in looked really cool, like the lighting was similar to my office lighting, and stuff like that. And then it wasn't a big thing. It just felt like I was a fly on a wall, just kind of looking to see what was going on in this this foreign place, right? So then I don't know, it's like a few nights later he has another one on, and I clicked into it. Well, that one was really short. I think he was just trying to came on to kind of talk in general with some people, with whoever showed up, to see if anything spurred on, something that he wanted, or something to help him with what he was working on. And so it was kind of short, and I barely got into the live stream when he started talking about ending it. It's like, well, that sucks. It's like late to the party, and when I said something about how was I going to distract myself from writing or whatever, and he responded, and I was like, weapon scene. And it's just this really uncomfortable feeling of going from the fly on the wall to suddenly I've been spotted and now I don't know how to act. But like, he responded to it, and it was just nothing major. Kind of seemed, it might have just been the way I was personally receiving it, based on like the stuff that, my own baggage at that point kind of seemed like it could be a little sarcastic. I don't know, but it was just like, I don't know what to do. I've been seen now, right? So, after that, started this whole thing with like really realizing that, I had like this real strong sense of just not feeling safe in my body, and trying to figure out where that was coming from. And, because mind you, I got divorced in July 2019, and was still processing a lot of things, trying to figure out how I got into as bad of a connection as I ended up being in, and trying to navigate the healing process, and also doing my normal thing, which turns out is kind of running from aspects of the healing process if I can. Hey, stop it. Tazzy, quit legging. But yeah, like when I watched that video today, and she was talking about the runner, and it's like, I said, so a few weeks ago, and I told him about the dream, and I was like, and then I realized that I am the runner, and I have always been the runner, because like every time I've had something come up in my life where I had the opportunity to step into higher ways of being me, and being me in my existence, I frequently ran from those, and like the relationships I ended up in, there weren't a huge amount of them. I had like 3 serious relationships, and the last one was the one I married. So it was like, him especially, it's like I never should have been in that situation. But hey, quit licking. But because I had sorry, the dog licked, it distracted me, and now I gotta remember where I was. I was right out of basic training and my advanced training for the military, and came back home. It's like the whole basic training AIT experience felt like a dream, especially basic. But then, since one of my bigger regrets was that I didn't go active Army for any time. I went National Guard, so went to basic training, went to AIT, went back home. I was like, how do you return to the way of existing in the world that you left, when you've come to find out you're a lot stronger and more capable of doing big things than you ever realized you were before? And the answer for me was not well. So basically, plus I was approaching my 30th birthday. I went in to the military at 28. and then met my ex right before I turned 29, and then we got married later that year, and so we were married before I turned 30. And so it's like there was all this confusion, and then I jump into this relationship with somebody that, had I been able to step back and look at the situation rationally, I would have seen all the red flags and not gone through with it. But because I just gotten out of the military, and everything I thought I knew about myself had been upended, because I realized I was a lot more capable of doing things than I'd ever believed myself to be before then. So then I was trying to rationalize that stuff, and I end up in this extremely toxic marriage and felt stuck. And it was like, my dad was watching something earlier, and the guy that was talking about the liminal spaces. He said the kind of the space where you can't go back to what was, but you're not quite to where you're meant to be. And it's like, when I heard this guy saying this stuff, I was like, that's my life right there. And it's like, that's been my life for a while. Oh boy. My dad's commenting in the me and my brother group again. I wonder, I need to see if there's a way to shut off those messages. Because that's distracting when I'm trying to talk. Anyway, oh boy. but as I'm talking about this now, it's like, that really started when I went into basic and all of that. It's like, there was no turning back, and I went into basic when I did, because, I enlisted in July of 2011. So in January of 2011, that was when me and the ex of 4 years broke up. The one that we broke up 4 years to the day that we decided we wanted to see each other exclusively. When we had the conversation about it, because we knew at the time of our first date that was the case, but we decided after we actually talked through it that we would count the date of our first date as the anniversary, because for each of us, that was when it started. So then when it ended, it ended up ending on the day we had made this decision for all that, to see each other exclusively and all that stuff. And it's so funny, because when I was talking about that the other day, it was like, that relationship right there was the one I held on to throughout my connection with my ex-husband, as a sort of, it was kind of a reminder that I had been treated a lot better by somebody in the past. So clearly the stuff that my ex was saying about me wasn't entirely true, and so I needed to kind of work through those things, I guess. But then, it was so funny, because on our first date, the song Chasing Cars by Snow Patrol played while we were ice skating. And I loved that song. It had just come out recently, and I was obsessed with it at the time. So it was never our song or anything, but it always made me think back to that first date. So then when I was working on disconnecting with my ex, especially after we got custody of this kid, that was kind of funny, because we would take my ex to work and then go back home to finish getting ready, because he had to get ready for school and all that stuff, and then I had to take him to school. But I needed the car to be able to drop him off and then pick him back up. So we would take his dad to work, and then we would go down and I would drop him off at school. But there were several days when the song on the or that song would come on the radio, and he'd just be back there belting it out just as loud as he could. And I was just sitting there, and it was just like this big glaring reminder of the time that I had a connection with somebody who had treated me better than my now ex-husband was. And, kind of that kick to force me to do the uncomfortable thing, the hard thing, the actually leaving thing, and get out of there. But it's like that song, it just was like following me around for a while as I was trying to disconnect from that relationship. But then it was funny because when I was talking about it the other day, and I've mentioned a few times, oh boy, the drama continues, that it seemed like since we had decided on that day that we were together, and then 4 years later broke up on that same day, but he had completely forgot about the fact that, that was the day that we had decided to see each other exclusively, because, we used the anniversary of our first date as like the time we were together, so he didn't think about it. But then it was a helicopter, and more brother and dad drama. But it seemed like that was a good way to wrap it up, to close off that particular cycle. But yet I was still hung up on it all throughout the time that I was with my ex-husband, because I felt like shit about myself. And then I went into the military and lost all sight of who I was and who I was trying to be or who I thought I was in the world, and learned I was capable of doing more than I thought I was. So that was the whole thing. But it's like, basically, as I'm thinking about it now, it's like this whole, basically since 2012, when I got out of the training phase of my military time, it's like this whole thing has been, what do I do now? Who am I in the world now? And then I married my ex, and regrettably, and that was not where I was meant to be. However, I knew I could help people, or I liked to help people, and I could help with the situation with his kid, particularly once I realized his brother was getting drug into it unfairly. So that was a whole thing. But then it got to a point where it's like I did this thing that I set out to do, which was help him, as well as, my former stepson, and however I could, and hopefully just in the example I was able to set for him, so he realized that there were better ways to be in the world than what his parents were offering him. But now it's just like, after I had that dream, I had to face the fact that it's like I have been running from myself my entire life, basically. When things get hard, that's when, like, okay, go into the thing that's distracting, like the relationship you shouldn't be in, the conversation you try to avoid, so then you jump into this other aspect of the connection that doesn't end up being helpful. And yeah, I might as well I talk about everything else on here. Might as well talk about that one. So the ex before my ex-husband, first dude I was intimate with, if you will. And so then sex became a thing to distract from the hard conversations. And, and even though I knew I was doing that back then, I still wasn't able to realize that I am the runner. And it's been like all the ways that I've been running from myself all along in my lifetime, and over again. And, I always go, turn go super crab mode and turn within and get lost there and refuse to come out. And it's like, that's not helpful. So now as I'm navigating this other stuff with this twin flame thing, it's like, oh, it's me. I was that problem. That was always me. I've always been running from myself and thus running from the connection because, oh, that is a low-flying helicopter. It's like right over the top of the trees. But yeah, it's like I've literally always been running from myself, and that's the thing. And the whole thing with the twin flame connection is that it requires you step into higher aspects of yourself, higher ways of being. It's that sort of I will meet you in ascension kind of a thing. And when I had that dream the other day, there was always a part of me that kind of knew that was the case and that I'd spent a lot of my life running from things. But then I looked at the part where I jumped into the places I shouldn't have been, like the relationship with my ex-husband, and never should have been there. And it's like I jumped into it to avoid stepping into the higher aspects of myself and what I knew I had it in me to do and to be, and I was just trying to avoid it, and can't do that. So the healing work, I've had to do a lot of healing work over the past, especially the past little over a year that I've known who my twin flame is. And this whole thing, this YouTube thing, this version of me does not exist without him existing and without having encountered his energy to begin with, because it was after the whole fly on a wall thing with the the Instagram live stream. It's like then I started to really feel the sense of being unsafe in my body and feeling unsafe in my body, and that it wasn't okay for me to be me because of this other stuff. Then it was then I was made aware that I needed to work on boundaries and like energetically knowing what's mine and what isn't. And then that ended up being where a lot of that, the lower dense energies coming in ended up locking me into this place where I didn't feel safe in myself. And then I've talked about this on here before too, that it's like I kept having these scenarios pop into my head after the live stream. I made a comment to a girl that I was very, very briefly online friends with. We'd met in some like online class I'd signed up for and kind of realized that like the whole thing was the topic of concern was kind of, basically it was a full of shit program. It was helpful for some people but not for me people. Because like my path is very specifically set out for me, and that was there were some things that we talked about in the group that were helpful, but mostly it's like I'm not supposed to be here kind of a thing. But I had a couple friends very, very briefly from the group that, we connected and realized like not a one of us was really feeling that group setting and being there. So we all ended up dropping it shortly after. And that was the whole thing. But anyway, one girl, I made a comment about maybe I should manifest one of those, referring to this guy. And she said something, I don't even remember what she said, but it was very discouraging. And it's like, yeah, you're probably right. Who am I to think that anything would be possible on that end, right? That kind of a thing. But it's like, as I look back on it now, it's like the universe basically slammed the door. Okay, you're not going to take this seriously. Then, this whole area is just completely closed off to you. And then, like I was on the dating apps at the time, and then I started having all these people that kind of were popping out of the woodwork that were like a-holes, or, the guy that said, do you have the facial piercings, tattoos, or have ever had green hair? Yeah, then don't even bother, because I'm looking for somebody I can take to church, kind of a thing. And all those things. Like, I had never had green hair until I saw that guy's post, and it's like, you know what? Now I'm going to have green hair a lot, because anybody that is worth my time on being with is going to be somebody who can see beyond whatever weird hair colors I want to have, and see who I am, the deepest levels of me, even if in spite of me at times. I'm not even sure which one's snoring. But yeah, it's like the person I'm meant to be with, that won't matter at all to, and so that was one of those things that was like, I started just like, this is bullshit, I'm done with this kind of a thing. And then it was trying to, I heard of like the twin flame stuff a couple different places, and it's like, okay, there's something to this, and I know like it felt like it held some kind of meaning to me. So yeah, there was a couple little things that I paid for, like meditations and like classes to talk about it. And when I started out, it's like this guy started coming to mind like a lot, and it was like, I didn't feel like I was setting out to think of him. It's just, I would be in the middle of doing something, and all at once I would have this scenario pop into my mind about meeting him somewhere along the way. And it was usually at a gas station, and he was like getting off of a tour bus or something, because I realized that the only thing I was doing that might open me up to encounter anybody in my lifetime was going to the gas station. And then otherwise hiding out, trying to avoid life. I've had a couple jobs that, weren't working with Gracie. They were factory settings, and it's like, there was so much dissonance in my being there that I knew I wasn't supposed to be there, and ended up leaving. The first one I left because I was going to try to focus on the writing stuff. But then when I would do the writing stuff, it's like I would get to a point where I would get so weighed down with focusing on, like, okay, the suicidal ideation times, and then I would find myself in a rut again, and like couldn't get beyond that, and I would get stuck. So, then I just disappear into myself again and not do the writing and not do anything that I knew I was supposed to be. I realized I still had another retirement account that I've since gone through to try to handle the things while I was trying to open myself up to the other things that I know I'm supposed to be doing and moving into. And all this healing that I've had to do this past year to really come to terms with becoming a better version of myself. I like that whole thing's just so yeah, we're just trying to think. It's 2:49 and I need to go get ready to go to the car line. I have to be there at 3:30, so I still technically have time, but I do need to drop the dogs off before I go. Hey, Billy D. Zippy. Hey. Yeah, okay. I'm kind of worried about my dog at the moment, so I'm going to get off of here, and as always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.